What if I told you that the story you think you know about the environmental movement is a lie? Today, we're diving into the work of historian Jason W. Moore, and we're going to uncover a hidden history that changes how you see everything from Earth Day to the climate politics of right now. You know the official story, right? It usually starts here, in 1969. The air in the cities is thick with smog, rivers are catching fire, and then bam! A massive oil spill off the coast of Santa Barbara, California. We've all seen the images, those pristine beaches covered in black sludge. It felt like a wake-up call for the entire country. And that shock, so the story goes, leads directly to this, the very first Earth Day in 1970. It was huge, millions of people all across the country coming together. It's this beautiful, triumphant story of a grassroots movement being born, one that finally put the planet on the political map. But what if that feel-good story is, well, a carefully constructed myth? That's the argument from historian Jason W. Moore. He's a major voice in what's called the world ecology conversation, and he argues that the mainstream environmentalism that we all inherited was never really about challenging power. In fact, it might have been designed to protect it. Okay, so let's get into it. To really understand what's happening today, Moore says we have to go way back, long before the 1960s. He makes this provocative claim that environmentalism has always been, in his words, a blue blood affair, something driven by the wealthy elite, not by activists in the streets. I mean, just look at the two guys who basically founded the movement. On one side, you've got John Muir, the preservationist. He helped create these incredible national parks. But crucially, the lands they set aside were, as Moore points out, marginal to the moneyed interests. They weren't where the big profits were. Then you've got Gifford Pinchot, the conservationist, who basically wanted to run forests like a well-oiled machine for the logging industry. Moore's point is that from the very beginning, both wings of the movement were about managing nature for capitalism, not questioning it. Okay, let's fast forward to the 1960s. For a hot minute there, it really looked like things could have gone in a completely different direction. A truly radical, anti-corporate environmentalism was starting to bubble up, one that wasn't afraid to name names. And the spark was Rachel Carson's absolute bombshell of a book, Silent Spring. She didn't just say, hey, this pesticide DDT is bad for birds. No, she went right for the jugular. She connected the dots between ecological collapse and corporate power's logic of quick and easy profit. She wasn't just observing nature, she was picking a fight. And right here, this is the fork in the road. On one path, you had student protesters physically putting their bodies on the line to block Dow Chemical, the company making napalm for the Vietnam War. At the same time, a totally different path was being paved with corporate money. The Ford Foundation started funding new legal groups like the Environmental Defense Fund. Their whole thing was, sue the bastards. But when their founder got a little too real and proposed a massive lawsuit against the chemical industry, the board canned him. The message was clear. Challenge them, but don't challenge them too much. Courtrooms became the new street protest. Which brings us back to 1970 and the first Earth Day. Now, Moore sees this event not as some great grassroots victory, but as a masterclass in how to take all that radical energy and, well, tame it. How to redirect all that anger away from the people in power. See, this was the slogan of the radicals, pushed by people like the historian Howard Zinn. Thou shalt not kill. It was direct, it was powerful, and it had a very clear enemy. The military-industrial complex, the corporations getting rich off of war and pollution. But this is the slogan that actually won the day. From a popular comic strip, we have met the enemy, and he is us. And just like that, everything shifted. The problem wasn't Dow Chemical anymore. The problem was you, your car, your groceries, your choices. As Moore argues, this was a brilliant move. It took the responsibility off of a specific system and spread it thinly across all of humanity. And if you want to understand the stakes, look at this. Earth Day was safe. It was sanctioned. The New York Times called it a day of national unity. Congress literally adjourned for it. But 1 week later, when students held a protest that actually challenged state power, protesting the Vietnam War, they were shot and killed by the National Guard. This just lays bare the difference between a protest the system can absorb and one it has to crush. So this new, tamer environmentalism needed a philosophy. And Moore argues it found one in what he calls the scientization of politics. Now, that's a big phrase, but the idea is simple. It's the belief that really messy political problems, questions of justice, inequality, and democracy, can be solved not by public debate, but by experts, by technocrats who will listen to the science and give us the answers from on high. So, what does any of this have to do with today? Well, according to Moore, this history has trapped our climate politics in a dangerous loop that he calls the fear and the fix. First, you create the fear. You hear it all the time from world leaders. They talk about an existential threat, a crisis of survival. Now, let's be clear, Moore isn't saying the science is fake. The point is that this specific kind of crisis language is used to create a climate of fear that demands immediate top-down action without a lot of messy debate. And that fear becomes the perfect justification for the fix. A whole suite of techno-scientific solutions that promise to save us. Things like geoengineering, carbon capture, electric cars. Notice what they all have in common? They're solutions that let us keep the current system running, just with a few new gadgets. But here's the thing. The fix conveniently helps us forget. Research has shown that just 103 giant corporations are responsible for something like 70% of historical industrial carbon emissions. That the enemy is us narrative does a really good job of hiding this incredible concentration of power and responsibility. And this brings us to a huge idea in Moore's work, which he's explored in major books like Capitalism and the Web of Life. He says we're getting the name for our era all wrong. It's not the Anthropocene, the age of man. He calls it the Capitalocene because the problem isn't humans as a species. The problem is a specific historical system, capitalism, that is built on endless growth and treating both people and the planet as cheap resources to be used up. So this all leads us to the absolute core of Moore's argument. He says the real choice in front of us isn't between some fancy technology on one side and total doom on the other. No, the choice is actually much more fundamental. And let's be super clear about what he's saying here. He is not anti-science, far from it. What he's warning against is a kind of scientific authoritarianism, where the phrase, listen to the science, is used as a weapon to shut down democratic debate and push through policies that benefit the powerful, creating what he calls climate austerity for everybody else. So, if the answer isn't a techno-fix from above, what is it? For Moore, the alternative is the exact opposite. A radical expansion of democracy. We're talking about real democratic control over the economy, over how we invest our resources, and even over what kind of science and technology we develop in the first place. And this is the final, crucial question he leaves us with. He isn't saying we should just reject technologies like geoengineering out of hand. Instead, he forces us to ask a deeply political question. The issue isn't if we use these powerful tools. The real issue is who decides. Is it going to be a handful of billionaires and government technocrats? Or is it going to be the people of the world making these choices democratically? And how you answer that question, well, that changes everything.